So again, thanks very much, gentlemen, all of you, for giving up your time. I know that, particularly management positions take up an awful lot of your free time, and you've got families and all those other responsibilities. So we really appreciate that. You know that you guys also are very gracious about giving up your time, and we really do appreciate it. So I might open by casting to you, Shaun, if I may. Just perhaps if you might, for those that perhaps haven't seen some of the video grads or some of the other content that's out there, perhaps give us an insight into the changes that have occurred since Richfield came on board as the new part owner of the club, and what you've seen as being the real upticks for you in terms of the business and the football department. If you perhaps speak to that for us.
Absolutely. Well, it is a really exciting time, and it's a new chapter for the club now as we head forward. As everybody knows, for quite a long time we've been on the lookout for a new chairman and a new direction for the club, with Mike unable to really contribute a lot. So Richard came along by chance, so someone call it a bit of fate. His young boy Toby was picked by Monty to come into the academy and the crew there. So and he's been doing a cracking job in the under 20 side. And along the way, as Rich came along, he come to get to know the club pretty well. So he had no intention of ever really looking at a football club, but he was heading up an A-League bid at Canberra at the time. Once he sort of came in and got to know us all, he started to look around and realise that he's an untapped market. He's a great football club that's got all the elements and everything that he was looking for. A really good, great community-based club with a really strong philosophy and principle about youth development and academy, which has been great. So the changes for us now are enormous. I won't hide from the fact that it is a pretty significant shock to the system to go from the way that we've had to operate in battling for survival for so long to have a proactive chairman who's on the ground, who we all get to know, we all get to have a relationship with and ask questions and get to express our passions for the club, where we want to go, what we want to do, and the answer 9 times out of 10 is yes. Let's have a crack at this, and it's really, really exciting. There's it's not like there's oceans of money coming in, but nobody's expecting that at all. Everybody's expecting us to be a smart, well-operating business with a good direction into the future. Rich is really passionate on game day, so I know you've already met, and there will be a lot of energy put into this. I'm really, really excited because I know all the answers to things that the OSC are looking to do is already ticked off, and the answer is going to be yes. So there's some really good energy there, and so for us as a club, sometimes you've got to get out of that shell of going, oh, I don't think we can afford it, or we better not, sort of take the safe approach. It's now let's make smart decisions to get the club headed in the right direction and really move forward, and that's just from my perspective. I know it's had a greater impact in the football areas, but when you think of what's been achieved by these guys on the pitch and Monty in the structure, to be number 1 in Asia for youth development and to be the 17th best club in the world, for that, it's just unbelievable. And now we've got a chairman who's just as passionate about that and gets to drive that forward with us. So I know it's going to have an impact on every aspect of the business, and it's a really exciting chapter for us moving forward.
Can you? I think we've all seen that the club probably turned a corner 18 months to 2 years ago now in terms of the off-field operations and structures that were in place, and that was already bearing some fruit. So I guess the hope is that you can go on to really leverage from those strong foundations to build a really well-run club from top to bottom. What excites you most about moving forward, Shaun? I know we've got a lot of things to look forward to, like promotion to NPL1 was achieved recently, and also the announcement around the A-League women's team coming in 2022-23. I guess there's a lot of work around both of those, but I from where I sit as a fan, I see those as being the final pieces of the jigsaw puzzle falling into place. Is that how similar to how you feel?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the things that really excites me, to be open and honest, is previously all the staff, you were sort of working at the Mariners till you got a gig to go somewhere else, right? Like you're working to the Mariners as a young person trying to crack it into sport or crack it on the field, and then use that as a launching pad. Whereas now we talk about the club trying to keep pace with the quality of the staff and grow at that sort of a rate. So this is now a home of a long-term professional career for people on and off the pitch, and that's really exciting. That's really exciting to have that conversation with everybody and to see what they can achieve. in that space. So really turning everybody into professionals is really exciting for me. So that's probably the best way to really answer it.
Yeah, it was interesting that Richard did touch on that in the chat that we had with him about how the staff had achieved amazing things with so little resources, and that how he looked forward to seeing them grow in their roles when they really had the right support around them and the ability to do things that they really want to achieve. So yeah, I think we're all excited by that, because as much as it's down to these guys on a weekend or in each game to deliver on the park, that doesn't happen without a great support network around them and a well-run club behind them. So I think that's equally important, and one can't live without the other. It's effectively.
Yeah.
Are you able to give us much more insight into the A-League women's space as to what's happening there, or what the plans around that are?
Yeah, there's a long way to go. It's a big beast to tackle, and in particular to make sure that we get it right so it has no negative impact on any of the other business parts of the organisation. So we really don't want to have it detracting anything to have any sort of distraction. But it is very exciting, something we've been working at for a long time. We still do have some regulatory stuff to get through with the FA, in all honesty, but that should take care of itself for the next few weeks and months. And really for us heading into the women's space, it's about completeness of brand. So we offer a great pathway for our boys. We offer a great group of role models for the community in that space. So I'm really excited to see what our women's pathway can turn into, and what we can produce on the field for the women. Whether it's double headers or whether it's standalone, the games will be at Central Coast Stadium. So it's a second national team based on the Central Coast, which is really, really exciting. But there's a long way to go. So we're really looking at the time frame around, hopefully announcing a coaching structure around 1 January. So I think the New Year's Eve match against Victory will probably be the target. We may not hit it, but that might be the target that we're looking for. With the first sort of training session come through 1 July, and then into the competition into November. We'll have the Women's World Cup that we'll be able to leverage in around that space. So there'll be all the best players around the world coming. So from a selection of visa players, that should be relatively easy because I'll be here and they'll get a feel of things. There's also a bit of energy about that around at the moment as to which women's team will get based on the coast. So we do know that there's some pretty big teams, including the Matildas, that are considering being based here. So it'll really open up that door for women's football here on the coast. And but yeah, there's a lot of work. There's a lot of work to get going, which is why we're really comfortable that as much as everybody knew that my passion was to dive in head first, probably the smart thing was to make sure that we had one more year to get a run into it.
Well, we saw what happened with Wellington Phoenix kind of being thrown in at the deep end. They manfully struggled, I guess, or womenfully struggled to get some traction in the game. So yeah, you perhaps don't want to set yourself up for a fall to start with. I guess that's quite understandable. Are you able to speak to the new ownership of the stadium with us and how you see that impacting things moving forward? Yeah, I mean,
for those who may know Kath Casey, she's like a totally new person, which is exciting. So the council was running the stadium, and for many years we've been talking about our passions as to what that venue can bring, not only our club but the community as well. So and going through the long and arduous tender process, it fell very nicely with Venues Live. So Venues Live, who I've had a personal relationship with the guys there for almost 20 years, so I know that they're absolute experts in the field. As soon as their name came up for it, I knew straight away, I'd vote for them over us. In all fairness, they are absolute professionals. So they run the Accor Stadium in Homebush, which was Stadium Australia. They run the Combank Stadium in Parramatta, and also Optus Stadium over in Perth, which has hosted the AFL Grand Final. So they're at the top of the field, and they're the Venues Live company came from the Olympics, so that's where it sort of formulated and came through from there. So these guys will bring more concerts, they will bring more content, they will probably give us a bit more stress about the amount of events that are on the pitch, but to not be selfless about it. The more content that stadium brings, the more money gets into that stadium, the better it's going to be for our club. And there is a partnership in place for that. They really respect us as anchor tenant, and they really want to flip the model where council were looking at the Mariners to be one of the main contributors to financially keep the stadium running, whereas they now look at Mariners as the anchor tenant. They look after us, and everything else will take care of itself. So it's a fresh lease of life for them as well. So the timing of both is pretty exciting, and I do think that we'll see a very, very different in a positive way stadium as we get there on match day.
I think one of the frustrations as a fan for many of us is that you often see an NRL trial game happen the night before an A-League game, which can't do anything to the surface of the pitch. I mean, I
Exactly.
know the groundskeepers there do a fantastic job and it always looks splendid, but hopefully the arrangement with Venues Live will be such that you can have those conversations and say, well, maybe you have the game the day after we play, or, you know, maybe the week before, or, you know, so hopefully that's a more organic discussion and a bit more beneficial both ways.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's already a very strong discussion that's flowing very positive about the boys having more training sessions at the stadium when they play. So improve their ability to have a home ground event.
I know Rich has made a statement recently that he'd like to, one of his KPIs, as he likes to call them, is to get 8,000 fans to each home game. Are there any initiatives that the club are working on that you're able to speak to sort of try and encourage that number to get there?
Yeah, there's a really big working group around just fan engagement, what we can do. Rich has made it very public around his passion for American sports and the way that they do it. And what he's really talking to is, instead of it being just a 90 minutes of football and just a football match, it's an event. It's an event that starts a couple of hours before and finishes a couple of hours after. So we're definitely trying to tackle the precinct. We prefer it to look like a proper precinct instead of a war zone with the cops and all that sort of stuff, you know, shutting it off. So that's our sort of first conversation that's in there. And I do think, yeah, even around the active support, how do we make sure that on a summer's afternoon it's not as blistering hot, whatever we can do that's out there, and just making sure that every match day is a big event that's there. So live bands and musicians and all that is all on the table at the moment for us.
Okay, so
Good.
anyone have any questions for Shaun? Robert.
I've got questions. Bob Brooks, I'm a foundation member of the Mariners, very proud of that. And it's a pleasure to have these people, the players here, and Shaun, particularly, I'm coming over here, so I'm not, I haven't got my back to you. One of the things that I always do is I see visiting spectators, and I always ask them, why have you come? You know why? Because ours is the favourite and they reckon the best stadium in the country. So we should all be very proud of that. The only thing I would like to see, and I think you know damn well what it is, and that's cover over the northern grandstand. And the reason for that is that that's where many active supporters are. They make a lot of noise. Unfortunately, it dissipates into the air. If that was covered over, that would really raise the atmosphere. So when you're talking with our friends at what they call themselves,
Venues Live.
that's something, a development that needs to be done, but they should look at it in the longer term. It needs to be a substantial one so that eventually they can put not yet, they can put a second tier on it. These younger players will see that happen. I may not, but I determined to be around for the next 15 years and enjoy the success of the club. And Monty, we're going to have a break in the middle of November, is it, for the World Cup?
Yeah, I think, yeah, November.
Yeah, November. For the first time ever, the Football World Cup is taking place not in the middle of the year, but in November, which is right in I'd say the vast majority of competitions, and it includes ours. Monty, what kind of, how long are we going to be out for? Is it 2 weeks, 3 weeks, or 4 weeks?
I think in total it's about 3.5 weeks.
Yep.
And what are you drawing up any plans to look at that, to supplement it, to play some friendly games, or?
Yeah, look, we've had a discussion with Rich today, and that was possibly about going to Japan for a week, obviously to play a J-League opposition there, and again, take the boys to experience something like that. But look, we'll obviously
I'm
continue.
shaking their head, so I don't want to go.
Or Vanuatu, because then Maximilian Ballard can translate the book.
Exactly.
You think? Have we got the money for the team to go to Japan, Shaun?
Oh, look, you know, it's not for me to speak on behalf of the owner, but I do know that there is if there's a good case and it's going to make a difference, there's an ability to find the funds to do that.
Well, I remember you took the boys to Indonesia, was it?
So I went to Indonesia once. So I took the young boys to Vietnam. A lot of times people will come in and offer funding towards it. So if we're willing to go and obviously we can fund some of it and they can fund some of it, then it's a good experience for them and us taking the young boys over.
I've got a question for Josh.
Well, we might just go in sequence, Bob, and then do those at the end if we may. So I haven't yet spoken to Monty, so perhaps,
And you haven't yet?
no, not yet.
Okay, well, you can do it.
Thank you, Bob. So Nick, rather than keep everybody going around and around, so we'll do an open question session at the end if that's all right, but I'd like to just go along in sequence if I may. So I asked this question to Shaun, but what have you seen has been the big changes from Rich since Rich arrived at the club and his vision for moving forward? Do you have to speak to us about that?
Yeah, so just on the football side, I think Shaun talked then more about the business side of him coming in and saying yes to a lot of things. Rich came in very passionate about football in general. He's a Leeds fan as well, so that was quite interesting. And yeah, look, he's, people in this room maybe don't know, but we were probably behind in terms, not at developing players because we're way in front, but in terms of the resources like the GPS, obviously getting live data of the boys in matches and in training. We actually only had one set of GPS, and that was for the first team. So all the success we had and all the players we developed the last couple of years, we actually never really had any live data on. And when you go to, again, sell a player overseas, they want to see the GPS results. They want to see how many high-speed meters they can get, what sort of distance they're covering in games. But a lot of the time we were blind, and that's a credit to us that we still managed to sell players like a Luke Walter to teams like Stuttgart. So when Rich came in, one thing, the biggest thing from his business as well is athlete development. So I think when you're developing, especially young players and older players as well, the modern game is you have to be a good athlete, and what he has done and is what he said he would do is put resources into that, and that's GPS units for the MPL boys, which they now have, which is great because when we're bringing young players up from the MPL to the A League, you want to be seeing, what running capacity they've got, and compare it to what we're doing in the A League, and if it's miles apart, then obviously we need to fix that. So now we've got a lot more data. Then we had the training ground again. It's been the same ever since I came out here 10 years ago. Nothing changed, apart from one or two things every off season, which Shaun always tried to help and change something. And the biggest thing I did was put my own office. When I first took over, that was important for me. But now we've got some ice baths. I mean, it sounds simple. Most clubs haven't, but we've now got ice baths. We've got an infrared sauna in there. So for the recovery on a daily basis, and the heat acclimation, we've got stuff that most clubs had and we didn't. So when you're developing players and you're trying to, get the best out of every player, we're now not having excuses that we don't have this and we don't have that. So I think that's one of the biggest things. And yeah, it's just been supporting me with the signings as well. Probably the only club at the minute that could get a marquee within the salary cap. But that's obviously with Burris leaving and Marco for family reasons and stuff. So we're in a good position now where we're still looking at bringing players in, and it supports along with Shaun and Ken support what we want to do. And we're in a good space. So yeah, it's just been really supportive of anything that we want to do. And yeah, it's been obviously Mike, a great guy, and living in England, but Rich is on the ground now, so if he needs something, it's easy just to grab him and ask him, and he'll say yes. If he can't, he'll say no. It's just a good relationship to have.
It's been noticeable that he's been present at Plume Park for a lot of the MPL games as well, which is really quite impressive, to be honest. I mean, I know that it's been a philosophy of yours for a number of years, because I've spoken to you over a number of seasons about getting the NPL boys training with the first team and being integrated into that environment. And I had an interesting conversation which I'll share with you tonight. I spoke to Lockie Wales a number of years ago when he broke into the first team, and I've known Lockie since he was a very young boy, and he communicated to me that the step up from NPL at that time, or where we were at in the NPL system, into the first team was a huge leap. I'm interestingly talking to some of the NPL boys this time around and in recent weeks. They've said that they are now much more prepared for that transition because they've been training in that environment. They've been challenged in that, to that level. And so it must help with the process of bringing those young boys into the first team and then beyond.
No, for sure. I mean, look, again, what you need to do with the young players here is they've not had enough game time as young players compared to what you get in Europe. And that's one thing that I realised when I first got here. So the only way to really speed it up and accelerate their development is to throw them in with the big boys. And again, it's not always easy. You know, these boys will both tell you it took them a while to catch up to speed, but the only way you can do it is if they train with the first team, they train on a full-time basis. And you know, we had an investor, Anton Tagliaferro, that without him, it would have been very, very hard, because what you can't do is get kids that are out of school not earning any money and bring them in a full-time environment and train, because you know they have to earn money, they have to earn a living, and by bringing the scholarships in, I think the success that we've had from the scholarships has been amazing. And again, that's where we choose them. You know, we don't hand scholarships out like some of the clubs. A lot of them boys at other clubs, without naming them, 2 years after they've had a scholarship, they're ringing us and asking if they can come on an NPL contract. So I think that's totally the wrong way around. You know, they have to earn it. And you know, Brad Tapp, for example, he's captained the NPL boys all year, even times last year, and he's only just now getting a scholarship. And he's a 2001 born. So you know, I think we use the scholarship system really well. And as well, the profile players that we believe can make it in the A-League, we try and bring them in every now and then, just so they see what we expect and the expectations that we put on them within the NPL. You know, myself and Sergio Coach brought most of the players in, bar probably 4 or 5 in the 20 and first grade. And we brought them in, so they've worked with us for a number of years. And again, they might not be there right now, but they know that if they keep performing in NPL, then they're going to hit the same pathway as these two, and that's into the first team. And once you get in there, then the next step's an A-League contract. So it's pretty simple pathway, and it's one that we're really proud of.
Yeah, I mean, as you say, the proof of the pudding sat right next to you, isn't it, really? So it was noticeable on Sunday last that Brad Tapp fitted in almost seamlessly when he came on. I thought he did a great job, you know, as the the left-sided central defender. We wouldn't have even known that he was from the youth league, to be quite honest. I thought he acquitted himself very well. So it's a credit to what you're doing in that space. What are you able to share any more insights with regard to the final stages of our recruitment? I mean, everybody in the room will be super stoked that Danny Vukovic was announced on Friday. Great fit on so many levels for us as a club, and an eminent replacement for Mark Viragitti. So how far are we away from completing the jigsaw as far as the squad is concerned there?
Look, I just said then, we've still got funds to bring players in, and we've got a 10-week pre-season. We've got a centre-back coming from overseas. We're just waiting on his until he gets his visa and everything comes through. You know, there's no point in us releasing anything, but he should be here by the end of the week. You probably saw in the media report, Brian Kaltak is a Vanuatu international centre-back that I'm very shocked another A-League club didn't give him an opportunity before. I know he was under the noses of Wellington Phoenix for a couple of years playing in Auckland. He had offers to go to Hungary in the last couple of months, but we brought him in to trial at the end of last year. He was very impressive and unfortunately got injured. And yeah, look, I was always keen to bring him back in, and there's an opportunity to probably bring him in on an injury replacement from Aresh. That's what we're looking at doing. He's 28 years old, he's experienced, and yeah, I think he fits what we're trying to do. On top of the other centre back coming in, then we've got Dan Hall, who was one of the best centre backs in the A-League last year. Cam Windust, who is now on a scholarship and developing in a full-time environment for the first time, so he's going to take time. And next to Trianic, so I think we all saw as a 2003 ball. You know, the kid is a massive prospect, but again, he's going to take time. So I think we needed to bring in a little bit of experience at the back, and look, I think he get more experienced and a better character to have as your goalkeeper than Danny Vukovic. So I think when Biras went, and again that was a little bit of a shock to everybody, but the opportunity came for him. You know, for his family, it was something that after COVID, I think, you know, she went back to England and realised that I've been away from the family for a long time, and when that opportunity came, you know, never a club that stands in anybody's way if it's good for them and the family. And yeah, secretly, I think when it happened, financially for us, it was good. You know, we stood strong and got a good transfer fee. And from there, yeah, I knew Danny was an option. Spoke to Danny, and yeah, look, it was. I think if any A-League club would have realised he would have even the chance they could sign Danny Vukovic, they would have tried to sign him. But I think there's only one place he wanted to come, and that was back to the Mariners. So that was probably the easiest negotiation I've had off season. These two were very hard.
I'll bet.
It must be on that particular issue. It must be refreshing to be trying to persuade players to come to a club that's experiencing success. They can see there's a bright future, you know, going forward. Whereas, you know, recruitment previously, you know, could have been much more of an uphill task, I would imagine, in some cases.
Look, again, I think finding that balanced squad, no secret, we had a couple of players taking up massive amounts of the salary cap. And I don't agree that's the right way to build the team. I think you've got to have some parity, and if players want to be here, they're going to be here. And it's like people say, "Oh, I love the club. I love it." If you love the club, then it's not about money. It's about you fitting into the club's structure and the budget. And we're fortunate we've got a lot of young players, you know, who are, Shaun said before, they're actually making their way in the game, and we're no doubt using Mariners as a platform to go on to big things. And like these two sat next to me, no doubt they're going to big things. But right now they're in the best place they can be. And in and around that, you know, we try and bring in good players, good experienced players that, again, you know, like Jason Cummins. You know, the only reason Jason Cummins is here is because he's probably done a few silly things before. You know, otherwise he'd be at Notts Forest in the Premier League now. So we have to be realistic and realise how we get players in, and you know, hopefully he can get in that World Cup squad. He's reinvented himself since he came here. So yeah, look, for me, it's about making sure we have a balanced squad, and we have strength in depth, and we have competition for places, because I think without competition for places, you're never going to be successful. And the boys create that themselves every day in training, and that's where it's good to have 2 players per position. If you can't have that because you don't have the balance, you know, then you know, you're never going to get that real competition for place, and that's not going to them to drive. Well, not going to get them to drive each other to improve every day. And with that, yeah, I think we've recruited well, and a couple more signings to come in, and we've got a visa spot from Marcos going back to Costa Rica. So probably the biggest thing for me is, do we use that now, or do we wait till January and see, you know, what comes available in January and put that money towards, you know, a good player in January. So it's not saying if someone doesn't come up that's going to fit what we're doing, we won't bring him in.
Well, you've got the flexibility, whereas in the past you might not have that.
Yeah. So we're in a good position there. And then, yeah, again, I think we only trained for 2 weeks before the Sydney game. So we, you know, 2
Yeah, I was
weeks
going
of
to ask you
training.
to reflect on your thoughts on that game. It was a massive effort from the boys.
Yeah.
So close, you know, and unfortunately going down to penalties at the end of it. You know, 10 very, very tired players out there. Although I must say, Maxi took his penalty very well.
He did. It's the first one he scored, I think. No, but look, again, we knew, you know, we finished the season later than Sydney. Obviously, the boys then have to have a 5-week break, which is legal from the PFA. So we had 2 weeks to prepare for the game. I think Sydney finished 2 weeks before us. They were 4 weeks, so I think they trained for 4 or 5 weeks before the game. So the fact we trained for 2 weeks, obviously not had much training time or game time. I thought the boys were outstanding. You know, the young boys coming in. You know, we just lost Burris and Marcos in the space of 2 weeks, and I thought the boys, yeah, put in a stellar performance. Paul Dan was out for 9 weeks. You know, Dan Hall was out for 9 weeks in total with his knee, and he'd been back and give us 30 minutes against MacArthur, and I needed 90 minutes out of him. So again, it was a big ask for him. Two yellow cards. Thought were pretty harsh.
He just wanted an early shower.
He did.
That's what it was.
I think he was tired. No, but again, you know, even down to 10 men, I thought that the character we showed to get back into the game. Their third goal was handball, most blatant handball I've ever seen.
Tell me about it.
So it's, you know, we're 1 game back in, and you get a couple of tough calls, a double yellow card for Dan. I think one of them was a yellow card. The handball for their third goal is blatant handball, and if that's VAR, they pull it back and there's no goal. But we didn't cry about it, you know, like we never do. We cracked on, and Jason does what he does, and big player, big moment, comes on and scores in the 90th minute. And then I thought, after extra time, we were down to 2 men less for most of the extra time, and then penalties are penalties. It's a roll of the dice, and yeah, unfortunately, we missed the penalties. So
If we didn't get tough luck in the draw in the FFA Cup, we get nothing.
yeah, and I think ideally everyone wants an NPL club in that first round at least. So yeah, to have to go away to Sydney, a team that's been training double the time that you have. I'm super proud of the boys. I thought it was a massive effort.
I mean, there was certainly no shame in the result that day, and it's interesting that both FFA Cup finalists are now out, and so they were, you know, Victory are not even able to defend their title. So it's a tough competition, certainly, isn't it?
yeah, the timing of it again this year, last year with COVID was a bit messy, but yeah, you know, we wanted to progress. Don't get me wrong, of course we did. You know, we got to the final last year. I think if we'd have beat Sydney on penalties, I honestly think we'd have gone and won the thing. But we can now plan a pre-season where we're not dictated to buy, or you can't, you know, it might be this weekend, it might be that weekend. So one thing we're doing, and again, with the help of Rich and the sports science people, is that we try and plan the best pre-season we can and get these boys super fit. So when the A-League starts, you know, we hit the ground running, no excuses.
I understand from the conversations that I've had with you that we now have a new goalkeeping coach who's an overseas or a visa goalkeeping coach, as we like to call him. Are you allowed to be able to tell us a bit more about his background?
Yeah, so look, in the room, obviously we lost Jess Van Straten, went to West Sydney Wanderers, which happened. Players move on, staff move on, and then yeah, look, we had a lot of applicants for the goalkeeper coach, and through a contact to Sergio. Miguel is Portuguese. He's worked with some of the best keepers in the world. Oblak, Ederson at Man City, to name a few. You're talking best goalkeepers in the world. He's worked in there with their development. And then, yeah, look, when we had a lot of applicants, one thing, there is a massive shortage in Australia is goalkeeper coaches. If anyone's a goalkeeper coach in here, get badges. So, yeah, look, Sergio mentioned Miguel, and we spoke to him numerous times. I actually met him when he came over to Australia to do like a coaching clinic thing. It's like a player, you know, you maybe think there's no way we can get him. And we spoke to him, he's working with the Saudi Arabia national teams. We sold him the project of what it is. He obviously followed the club the year before through his friendship with Sergio, and yeah, we jumped on a Zoom call, and yeah, he was sold on the project, and he likes to travel, and he thought it was a great opportunity. So yeah, we managed to get him in, and very happy to get him in.
I think there's no question that your recruitment strategy has been pretty much spot on. There's not many players that you targeted and brought in that have not been a success for the club. So we're expecting more of the same, no pressure or anything, but we're expecting even bigger things this season. So, turning to you boys, because I know you've been sat there very patient. Thank you for that. I'll speak to you first, Max. Your experience on Sunday last in the round of 32. Was it a surprise to you that you were offered the armband in that game, or was it something you'd kind of hoped for?
It's not really something like, it was an honor to be able to captain the side, and Monty telling me that I was captain, it was an amazing feeling, and leading the boys out, and for them to put a performance like they did, and it was amazing to be able to be a part of the group. Wasn't necessarily something that I was expecting or wanted. I know it's not in my hands, so I don't really focus on it too much, and if it is there, and then I was more than happy to take the role, and I play the same regardless of the armband on my arm or not, and just go out there and lead the group as best as I can, with or without, and yeah, that's my role in the team, I guess.
When did you find out you were going to be captain?
Monty left it till late. Once I was in the change room, I think it was to not stress me out before the game or things like that. But no, I was looking at what was potentially the lineup. I thought that there might be a chance that I might be captaining the team, and yeah, it was an honor for me to do that, and I'm really proud of it.
That's just speaking for your personal experience. Do you find, I guess everybody's different, every individual's different, but for me, even at amateur level, appointing my captain each season is a very important choice for me to make. I want to choose the right character who's going to provide the right guidance to the team and the leadership to the team. Did you find wearing the armband changed the way you played at all in that game?
If anything,
in hindsight,
yeah, if anything, it probably gives me a bit more confidence, because you know you've got the backing of the coach and Monty. And Monty's been a captain himself of the club, so it's an honor to be able to do the same. And yeah, no, it probably gave me a bit more confidence, and I just try and give the same confidence to the boys around me so that we can play well. And to win was the goal, and unfortunately we didn't get there in the end. But we fought our hardest, and penalties are penalties, and it was just unfortunate in the end.
Well, you certainly knew where to put your penalty. Have you set yourself any goals for this coming season?
Nothing major. I'd say my main goals are to play as many minutes as I can and play to the best of my ability. I thought trying to keep consistent performances throughout the season is my main objective. I struggled with that at the start of last season, and towards the end, I thought I was starting to get my feet correct. And yeah, no, that's the main goal for this coming season, and to keep building on it and keep growing as a player.
I know Monty mentioned to me several seasons ago now, actually, when you were in the NPL setup, and he said, watch out for this young man, he's going to go a long way in the game, etc. So he certainly believes in what you can do out there. And you've shown that, I think, across the season, you grew enormously. I think the previous season you were hampered a little bit by lack of game time, which certainly didn't help your development. But I think everybody will have seen how much you grew as a player during the last season. I think it was a just reward to get the captain's armband on the Sunday before last. So congratulations to you.
Thank you so much.
Turning to you, Joshy. Now, some of you may or may not know that Josh had to have an operation at the end of last season. Perhaps you tell us about the background to that.
Yeah, so pretty much 2 seasons ago, I got an injury in my right ankle. Through some stuff, I was working on it, doing some strengthening stuff, and in the off season of last, I was seeing people to get it better. Unfortunately, it wasn't getting better, but it's a type of injury you can just manage and you can keep playing with, and you might not be able to play at 100%, but you can get to 95 or 90%. So during the off season, I saw a specialist and they decided to put me in an operation, and I got both my ankles done at the same time, just pretty much an extra bone in my ankle that was causing a bit of issues for the rest of my body, and got them cut out, and now just recovering now.
So where are you at in your recovery phase at the moment?
So this is start of week 5. Surgeon suggested that it'll be anywhere between 6 to 8 weeks till I'm fully fit. So I don't have too long left.
So you're not training yet, but you will be.
Yeah, so at the moment I'm just doing a bit of gym work, bit of rehab work, and then hopefully in the next week or so I'll start doing some running and then get to full fitness.
And what goals have you set yourself for the coming season, Josh?
The first goal is I want the team to do the best we can. I honestly think we have the squad and the recruitment's been very well that we could challenge, if not win the whole thing. Not just including the grand final, but the premiers too.
Oh yeah.
I do think we have a good squad. Personally, I want to play the best I can, help the team in any way I can, and an ambition of mine is to try and get Mariners medal this year, and I can only do that by playing well and having a team that's successful.
Well, I think that's a very laudable and I think very achievable for you, Josh. I think we're all very impressed with the way you go about your business, and we certainly, with all, notwithstanding Max's efforts in the middle of, but we certainly missed you on Sunday before last. We are actually quite pleased to be able to do this evening because you weren't available at the Mariners medal dinner, but you're aware that you were the OSC player of the year. So I'll invite Joe up to present the award to you while you're here this evening.
Okay, Josh.
So I'll just ask one more general question to the 4 of you. You can answer it, or each answer, or individually, or whatever. So, what would be a pass mark for the club this year, given how well we've gone over the last 2 seasons? Where do we set the bar for this season? Josh has just said winning the whole darn thing. Is that where we're headed, and that's our ambition?
I think for me, like last year when I came in, everybody wrote us off. Obviously, wrote us off from the start. We got to the cup final, top 6. We had that little spell where if we'd got 1 or 2 results would have turned around, we'd have probably finished the top 2. So look, I think again we sold Kai Rolls, Lewis Miller, Birighetti, so everybody's going to write us off again, which we love. And I think the recruitment and these boys, if you saw them train every day and how tight the group are, for me it's 10 years since we last won the championship, and I think we're in a really good position to challenge everybody again this year. So for me, you should never start the season not wanting to win everything. So we're no different. Again, like I say, we wanted to win the Sydney game. 2 weeks into training was always a massive ask, and we're that close to progressing through. But now it means we can just focus solely on the A-League, and yeah, I don't see why. I'm confident that we can challenge everybody if we can do that and have consistency throughout the whole season. And these young boys that have got a year's experience under the belt, added with Booker and the boys that are coming in as well, and that experience coming in, we're confident we can win the competition. So that's why we turn up every day at training.
Who do you think will also be featuring at the top end of the table come the end, the sharp end of the season? The teams that you think have recruited well and are going to go well.
Yeah, it's crazy the amount of money that's been spent by West Sydney Wanderers, by Western United. You see all them, but we know that money doesn't win your games. We proved that last year. So to be honest, we don't worry about anybody else. I think, I'm surprised to see Ninkovic go from Sydney to Wanderers. That was a strange one, but that would be good to watch them Sydney derbies. But yeah, like I say, we never worry about anybody else. We just concentrate on ourselves and I don't think anyone wants to play us. And if we continue, to where we left off last season, yeah, I feel like we can win the competition.
Here. Well done. So I'll open the floor, open the questions to the floor. If anyone has anything they'd like to ask any of the boys, now's your time. Mark.
Monty, you probably cringed when you saw Ricky Stewart with his post-match interview the other day. How difficult? I mean, you're sort of saying, we don't complain. There's been a lot of times, certainly some of those games last year, we're going, come on, Monty, say what you really, come on, and you're gritting your teeth. How hard is it in the heat of the moment, even though you know what you're meant to do, not what you're meant to do? Do you enjoy post-match interviews? And do you?
I don't think you enjoyed the one where they sat next to Steve Corica.
That was a strange experience.
Do you find it easy to pick up, or have you been very?
Oh, look, everyone, I'm a fiery person. I was a fiery player. Again, I don't like making excuses. I think sometimes, go back to the Melbourne City game. I don't think I needed to say anything because anyone with a pair of eyes watching that was just the most disgusting performance I've ever seen. And again, you look at this season, and I remember at the time saying, when the end of the season, that could cost us, and it cost us the home final as well as a lot of other stuff. But yeah, I just don't feel like we should be the club that complains about everything because it's sort of poor Mariners, and I think that mentality has changed now. I think people see the decisions that get made and just shake their head at them. So yeah, no doubt I will get fined at some point. But yeah, I was probably trying to keep my cool last year.
On that topic, are you aware of any changes within the refereeing structures in terms of education programs or improvements or learnings that the FA are going to take out of those sorts of situations?
They've only just emailed, I think today or yesterday,
Yeah, okay.
and they're doing the roadshow. So the referees will come around to the roadshow. Spend some time with Monty, tell them what they're going to do, and then do something different. At least they're going to try their heads. Yeah.
I'd sack the bloody lot of them and send them to the UK to be
I think
trained.
the worst one on that one, again, I think that was one of the worst I've ever seen, was the fact that VAR told them to change both decisions and
I
refused on
agree.
both. So the whole point of the investment in VAR was just totally ignored. Every other week it's listened to. So it was frustrating.
It was fantastic. We had an Adelaide ref for the Adelaide City.
Yeah, and again, so we found out the night before Adelaide, they changed it. We got an email to say the ref from Adelaide is going to take the semi-final.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, Sean, but the conversation I had with you at the time around that was that Daniel Elder was put forward for that game because he wasn't available to referee the following weekend. And yet, if my eyes didn't deceive me, he did actually referee that following weekend.
It was the midweek game, so he couldn't do the midweek because he had to work because he wasn't a full-time referee.
But for Barney was already scheduled to be the ref, as I recall, and was stood as the fourth official.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So
Who do you think is or was the best ref Australia produced?
probably the one I haven't
Sorry,
seen.
Loftovich, of course.
Probably the one you haven't seen yet. Good answer.
Probably Fagama that was supposed to ref the game, but he then stood as a fourth official. The best referee is now a fourth official, and a guy from Adelaide's refing the game. It was bizarre, honestly. It was bizarre. It really was.
I'm sorry he was
And
on.
then Lewis Miller's coming off, and we're making a sub, and they go to an ad break because everyone thinks they're going to make a sub, and he pushes the game off. And the ball goes down the right channel and cross and goal. It's like
The common adage in football is that the good luck and the bad luck even out over the course of the season. Would you say that's true?
maybe we'll get it all back. Maybe we'll get it all back this season.
Yeah, nothing to talk about.
Definitely didn't get it. Definitely didn't get it all back. That's for sure.
This year's our year, mate. Again.
Do you have any other questions?
Sure, yeah. I think the innovation of having their junior clubs on their sleeve is brilliant. Whose idea was that? Did it just?
Well, yeah, look, I suppose it was, but it's something I've been wanting to do for a long time.
Yeah.
And just trying to find the right moment. I actually sort of, and yeah, I just really happy the boys liked it. And we sort of doing these hoodies that were really for the cup final, and just gave us the opportunity to let them all talk about their junior clubs. And yeah,
I'd like to make a formal request to the club to make that part of their merch because I think it's a great top. Every time I see someone in it, it really go, oh, genuinely. I'd be so not okay.
Yeah, it really is tremendous. And I want to ask a question of Josh. Now, you last season were in the under-23 Australia training squad. Can you give us sort of some perspective of how that's affected you in terms of raising your morale? Did it make you better?
Yeah, so I got selected in the 23s, and it's the first time ever I've done it. So it was a pretty privileged moment, and I know my family were pretty proud of me as well.
We were too.
Yeah,
We all are.
So I went over to Uzbekistan to hopefully play and stuff like that, and unfortunately didn't get as much game time as I would have liked. But one of the positives was you see a lot of the kids overseas and players overseas that are renowned to be a lot better and stuff like that, but they're not. They're just pretty much the same. So I think unfortunately I didn't get as many minutes as I would like, but it sort of gave me a perspective that a lot of it is achievable as long as you work hard.
It must have been nice to have been in the company with Alu, Lewis, and Jacob.
Yeah. So I mean, Alone was my roommate.
Forgot about Lewis, but
I haven't seen Alone about a year, and he was my roommate at one stage on the coast. So it was good to see him, and it was good to have a few boys over there who are friends. Everyone's pretty nice over there, and you get along with everyone. But to know you have a bit of home with you, it is encouraging.
This one for both of the two lads here. How difficult is it to get these visas for the players to come out to Australia? Is it, like we see on television, getting visas for people to come here, or is it something different?
no, look, it's a process you have to go through. Everyone's different from where you're from. Again, we're bringing younger players out most of the time, so they don't come with wives and kids.
Yeah.
That's another issue and a massive expense that obviously is something the club has to swallow. So yeah, really, it's just going through the process. I think COVID slowed everything down, and since then everything's a little bit slower. But yeah, it's pretty good on that.
Are there criteria that they have to meet? Because I know if an Australian player goes to, say, the UK, they have to have certain representation levels and things like that in order to be granted a work visa.
Well,
Is it the same for players coming back this way?
Yeah, you and the only challenge is that the process keeps changing. So sometimes you're doing one particular visa and you need to shift it to another one, and in particular for COVID, it really did move it around for what you could do in and around. But the criteria is really about sponsorship here in Australia. So you need to prove your employment and you need to get sponsored. So the FA needs to give it a rubber stamp so that you're all okay. The club needs to, so we vouch for those visa players. So if a visa player comes in and misbehaves, and it can reflect poorly in the club or the organisation or the business, and then what can happen is that the Australian government can say, well, you can no longer sponsor coming through. So there is a process around criminal checks and all that to make sure that we're bringing in good people. So you've got to tick all those boxes as you go through. So it does become a little bit complicated in some of those aspects, but it's a process that you dive into and bring in.
Have you ever had a player's visa application rejected? Is that a curiosity?
Yeah, we have. In fact, there was when I first came, we actually had Yusuf Ursi came and trained with us for a
They
period of
granted
time.
in the wrong visa?
So and because he was already here on a holiday visa, and one of those criteria is around visas. At times, you can't get a working visa if you're here on holidays. So you need to leave the country and do all that. So that was one that we were about to announce Yusuf, and then he was here on the wrong visa, and then by the time we went through it, by the time we would have got restarted the process, it was in the window. I think it might have been in the transfer window. Says would have been finished. So yeah, that was one that I remember.
I think Mark, you had a question at the back.
Yeah, I can see that part of the dress code, Monty's got the ultimate compliments of the new owner. Sean, any changes happening at the top end of the office with the new owner coming in?
I suppose there's more resources for us, so there's a bit of an increased headcount for us, which is great. So and if anything, like I sort of started with, I think I can have a good conversation with all the guys about a long-term career. And what does that really mean? It starts to really have a great a conversation with people in around that. So I think that's probably some of the biggest impact that we've sort of noticed in the office, and just sort of seeing him around has been real positive, and can't wait to September 3rd release the new kit. So which is always a big moment for us. So yeah.
Is there any, I know you've been on the forum recently making some comment about this, but not everybody, I guess, reads the forum. So COE, is there, any, what's the timeline on that? Is there, is there real movement likely to happen anytime soon or?
Yeah, I suppose it's worthwhile for everyone's reference that the COE is still as an entity is still Mike Cusworth. So Richard hasn't purchased the property. So Mike is still donating the COE as a training facility and still contributing to the club in that aspect, which we're all extremely grateful for. And so there is some progress around the Ibis Road intersection to come through. Once that intersection is passed through its DA, which it's really close to doing, then you'll find there will be some fast food and a service station that'll come into that. Now, the reason that's important is the funding from that will trigger the next series of events. So as we have the service station and the fast food go in, that'll then go through to fund the hotel, which will continue to fund each stage of the COE as it continues to develop.
The intention is still to build the hotel with the rooftop bar and the
absolutely.
Mariners
Yeah.
club basically.
Yeah, and every time I speak to Mike, I remind him that there's a whole country running for that.
Whereabouts is it going?
So it's on the training field, the COE2 training field. So where you got the old hut, it will
Yeah.
actually be towards the back of that. So the road will come through and it'll be
Oh,
it'll
right.
be there. So
Gee, that'll be interesting, won't
yeah,
it?
yeah, we'll be.
For those that haven't seen the
Yeah.
fly-through video, it's worth watching because it's quite an impressive facility as when it's finished. So.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Danny's flight arrives, I think, on Wednesday night. So yeah, he obviously had a lot of stuff to sort out in Holland. His wife and kids were already over here, which is good. But it meant he was left to pack the house up on his own. Well timed by his wife.
The other one,
Exactly. So now he's just been going around like crazy. He wants to get here as soon as possible. He wants to get into training. So yeah, at this stage, possibly Wednesday night he arrives, and it could be in training as early as Thursday. And just go back to the question, I left training. The PFA came down today, so I literally hadn't even been home. I had to go meet the PFA in Terrigal. I came straight here, so apologies I didn't have the marriage.
On Danny's signing, I don't think it's been officially announced. Are you able to tell us how long he signed for?
Yeah, so it's a sort of 1+1 year deal. So yeah, look, 2 years. And again, I think Danny could finish his career off here, potentially then move into, one thing we do is help develop players post-career. So if he wants to be a keeper coach post-career, he's probably working with the best keeper coach he'll ever get to work with. And football is football. So no doubt Danny's he's a goalkeeper. He's got a couple of years left in him.
Good.
As long as the body's good. And yeah, no doubt he can do a couple of years after we've given that contract as well. So we'll see.
Freddie can do it, Danny can do it.
That's it.
I could have another question. Sorry, next time. So do we have any more questions from the floor? One more from the back. Oh, so that's what I was going to ask.
Yeah, so look, CCMO is obviously a massive part of the club. Last year was really difficult for him. Obviously with a neck injury, it's not a normal injury. It's not something that he can just get over. So look, last year was difficult for him. He's back in training at the minute, just going steady, and yeah, we'll get through pre-season and see where he is. But whether he plays or not, last year he didn't play a minute, but he's one of the most important squad members we had. Just having his experience and the leadership around the group, and it's one thing you get with Simo. If we can get him back fit off the bench, I think he'll create nightmares for defenders like he always does.
Just ask Josh Hong how he broke his thumb.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
I like the sign the old guys on the eastern side put up.
Matty likes it.
Careful, he bites your ankles.
Mark, I think you had a question at the back.
It's just the two young fellas been sitting up there so well behaved and haven't had enough questions. So, what are you two looking forward to the most on the pitch this season in terms of playing or on-field relationships and all that stuff?
Win.
Well, during last season, I sort of went from out wide to in the centre a bit. And at a stage I was playing with Ollie and then after Maxi come in. And I think we really clicked and we're doing well and we get along off the pitch as well. So I think if we get the opportunity to start the season and and we play well, I think we'll do very well in the midfield, and I look forward to playing with my friends.
Great.
Agreed with Nizzy. We built a great relationship on and off the field. We knew where each other were, and I think some of the performances show we in midfield we're doing good, and it helped the other boys up further up top to do their roles and score their goals and let them shine too. And in defense, same thing. But yeah, I'm just looking forward to get back into regular games week in, week out, and playing and hopefully going up and up on the table, and yeah, seeing where we can end up. I'm hopeful it is the #1 spot, and I think we do have the squad to do it this year.
I think you've had a couple of closed doors games, haven't you? One against Macarthur and one against the Knicks. You able to give us some insights as to how those games played out? I mean, I know they're training games, and I understand that Knicks have played in the FFA Cup, or Australian Cup, so I should say, midweek. But what was, how did you feel that the squad's doing both of those games?
Yeah, look, we played Macarthur at the stadium. We won 4-0. Obviously, a couple of new boys, Michael Roos, 2002, very powerful. You probably saw when he's a young boy. He's massive potential. Paul Ayongo came and trained with us for a week before the Sydney game, literally a week, and he scored against Macarthur as well, and played against Sydney. So, yeah, look, good results. Winning habits. We played Wellington on Saturday, beat them 2-0. Again, good performance, but it's pre-season. We made a lot of changes. They made a lot of changes, but I think the important thing for us was, another clean sheet. Yaron, since he's obviously Bira's left, he's stepped up, and he's been very good as well. So look, great competition for places and winning habits, winning games, and yeah, that's the mentality that the group's got.
What will Luke Wiltshire's role be moving forward? I understand that Andrew Christensen's now just got the finals to get through, and then he might be with the club next year, is my understanding. Is Luke going to step into that NPL role space?
Yeah, so Luke's going to come in and take over that space. Yeah, obviously Luke knows Rich from a while back, and he's left Wollongong and coming in to take that NPL space. So he'll take that. He's in at the minute. Sort of with myself as well, and learning stuff about the players and stuff. Football, things changing. Yeah, he's obviously got a wealth of experience. 8th most cap Socceroo. Works with the young national team as well. So it's a good addition to the coaching staff for us. And anyone that comes into that space, these boys know, myself and Serge spent 3 years in there. You're stepping into a good group of players that know what we expect at the club, and yeah, it's a joy to work with them young players.
It's always impressive. It always impresses me when we see these boys at Plume Park watching, the guys that are following them. Basically, some of them they would have played with, of course, but it's always nice that that's an organic thing. No one's forcing them to do that. They want to be there. And there's always at least half a dozen first teamers hanging around Plume Park every game at home. And I'd encourage anybody that doesn't go along to those games to try and do so, because you get to see the future of the club in action. And I mean, the fact they won the NPL 1 league this year, and hopefully we'll go on and do the double in a few more weeks. That's quite an achievement. I'm certainly very proud of that.
I think
as we are the first day.
Everyone knows, for 3 years we won that competition, but for 2 years COVID, we can't promote anybody. Ridiculous. So it's good that we finally got that promotion. I think the RBB threw a few flares one game, and that's why Wanderers missed out on winning the league. So it's ironic, yeah. So for us to win the 20s and for us to win leagues again, but actually get rewarded with a promotion to NPL 1. Yeah, I think that's just rewards, and it does help with recruitment moving forward. As we always said, we did miss out on a couple of players when I was in charge because they felt Sydney was a better club because they could play NPL 1. Now that's not a roadblock for us, and saying that, any kid that don't think the Mariners is the best pathway for them, then they've obviously got rocks in the head. So
yeah, well, I'm aware of certainly one young player who knocked back a 2-year deal with Newcastle to take a scholarship with us last season, because he backed himself to make it to the first team this year. So that's the sort of environment you'd want to have.
Yeah, clearly. For sure. And again, it's that simple pathway of develop, do well. The opportunities will be there for you. Not most clubs can't say that, so we are proud that they have to earn it. I always say they have to earn the right to play in the first team, and when they do, the opportunities will be there for them. So Yeah, that's the philosophy that we have. And it's exciting times ahead. You know, some good, very good young players at other clubs that wanting to come to the Mariners now, which previously that never happened.
So I'll one last question, because we've attacked quite a lot of these people's time up. So Mark, it falls to you.
Another one for Max. Last year we had some bloke up the front that speaks funny taking our spots. Is there some rule about, you know, you only got that position till you miss one?
Sorry, can you repeat that? Sorry.
Say that in English.
The fact that the company go missed a spot where you did,
Oh.
that you now take over.
No, I wouldn't say so. I think we all back Cummins to score that penalty, and yeah, I'm not going to say it's the first one he's missed because we know against West United, but he's a quality striker, and we're back him to the end. And whether it's him or any of the other players, even Benny can take penalties. He's a great penalty taker too. I'll always put my hand up, especially in a penalty shootout, especially in that game being captain. I thought it'd be good for me to step up, and I was fortunate to score mine, but I'm sure we took penalties the training before and they all scored theirs, top corner, this, there. And it was just unfortunate on the day they didn't manage to score, but yeah.
On that subject of the penalty shootout, two questions for you. First of all, how willing were the first 5 takers? You've obviously said you were keen. I'm assuming Jason was big then. And also the second part of that question is, how much did Redmayne being in the goals play into your head on the day? Given his heroics in the World Cup qualifiers.
Yeah, so pretty much all the first 5, even those that were after the 5, in case it did go further, we're all pretty keen now, and we all put our hands up, and Monty decided the order, and couldn't fault it, and it's just unfortunate in the end.
Maybe me now.
No. I would have put Jace first too. Yeah, and then Redmayne's a quality goalkeeper, but I just didn't really look at him. I just focused on where I was going to take my penalty, and I knew, and I think that's the way to go when you're facing a goalkeeper doing all those shenanigans in the goal, and yeah, so
Make your mind up and stick with it.
yeah, exactly right, and so yeah, it worked out for me. So yeah, I recommend that to you.
All right, well, I think we better let these fine gentlemen go. And I'd like you to ask you to thank them all for their time. And their,
Thanks, guys.
the last things to do on our list. You're welcome to stay, but if you'd like to leave, then I'll obviously understand the things that you need to be before we need to be. But thanks again, we greatly appreciate all of your time. We wish you all the very best for the coming season, and yeah, hopefully we can bring home some silverware this time around.